soon.
Hooray.
Okay, so 6:01 meeting is officially called to order. Paul, are you doing IT for us tonight?
Delene is.
I am.
Delene, do we
Yep.
have any public?
We have Audrey.
Great, let her in.
Okay.
Audrey's in.
Audrey?
Okay, I'm here. Yes, thank you.
Hi, Audrey, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm so happy that the Tree Advisory Committee is doing such a great job to protect the health and beauty of our Norwalk environment, and the staff, Paul Sotnick and the staff are just so terrific supporting this committee. Volunteers, I know as a volunteer that you give a lot of your time to this service, and I just wanted to share my appreciation. And then I'm looking forward to seeing the plans for the remediation there at Oak Hills Park, where I'm chair of the Nature Advisory Committee. Just looking forward to seeing what the plans are, and it's very exciting, and I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, Peter's going to be talking about that a little bit later on, so good stuff, good stuff. Thank you so much for your comments, Audrey. We appreciate it. We have 2 meeting minutes to approve. One from October and another from November. Is that right? Or is it November and December? No, it's October and November.
Yes.
The October minutes I read through very, very carefully. I felt that they were really well done. Did anybody catch anything in October?
I thought they were well also.
Yeah. Okay, so approval of October minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, great. And then the November minutes, which I skimmed. I actually didn't read that in full disclosure as carefully as I read through the October. So if anybody found anything there.
I only have one small thing. On page 4, report for NTA activities, the second bullet item where it says Mr. Shear said we. I think maybe that should say Mr. Shear said they had recently hosted.
Got it.
That was the only thing.
And then I think, Peter, you found something too?
On page 5, first paragraph, line 2, 3, 4, or whatever, spring 2022, Mr. V suggested that certain things, I might have said things, but it's not very descriptive, perhaps criteria regarding planting and snow shelf be documented. Because there's criteria that the liaisons would not know as to how to and what to look for, as adverse conditions in snow shelves. So just to clarify.
Okay, so motion to accept with these changes.
Motion to accept as modified?
Yep. Agreed, second. Okay, awesome. So the next item on the agenda is a capital tree planting program. Paul, if you wanted to talk about the budget, and then I think we'll bring Cindy in, and then hopefully Sonia will have logged on by then.
Okay. Bring it up. Let me share my screen. So it didn't come up.
Now, I gave 2 items earlier, just while Paul's doing that, to Paul to share on a screen for me during the meeting today. I didn't realize that, Delene, you were doing the IT for this. I would have sent those to you. Apologies.
No worries at all.
Okay, do you guys see the screen?
Yep,
Mhm.
Sonia, are you there? Hi, nice to see you.
How are you?
Good, thanks. We're just
Basically-
on item number 5. Paul was going to talk about the budget, and then Cindy was going to comment, and then you're up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we ended up, as we know, planted the 75 trees for the fall. What we ended up having was a total of 57,384.25. We had 76,389.50 available, some carryover from the previous year, and then the 65 we got as of July 1st. So that gave us the 76,389.50. So subtracting the two, we had $19,005.25. And then we had a reimbursement for some plantings from the West Rock Soccer Field project, since it had come originally out of our budget and there was money, they reimbursed us for that for $15,000. So right now for spring, we have an available fund of $34,005.25. But I already have projected plantings where we've got 11 on East Avenue that we're obligated to do, a potential for another 9. And then we've got some for Farm Creek, Day Street, Fairbury, 18 Reynolds Street, 10 Red Barn Lane, and 7 Red Barn Lane for a total of 31 trees. And right now, the estimated amount is about $30,537.50. So as you can see, our entire spring budget is almost spent. And if we've got more, please send them to me and we can add them to the list and then prioritize which order are we doing. And at the February meeting to be able to plant them in April and May.
And so Paul, that 15,000 that was reimbursed is specifically TAC money?
That we had originally expended the funds and paid out of the 26 trees that we did up on Aiken Street up here.
Mm-hmm.
So we expended it out of that to get the trees into the ground. And then after the project was completed, they reimbursed us $15,000 of that money. And some of them
Awesome.
were street trees too, so it would have been normal TAC that we would have spent the money anyway, but
Sure.
that's why. So the 15, it gives us 34,000.
Awesome. Very nice. Thank you. Cindy, did you want to jump in?
Well, you and I went back and forth a couple times on email, just clarifying what I will do with the spreadsheet
Mhm.
and keeping track of all the orders. I can start that hopefully in another 2 weeks after I finish opening my store.
Yeah, so Cindy has a couple of exciting things going on. She has a brand new store opening in Westport. I'm assuming that's where you are right now. Either that or you're filming from your closet.
Still a work in progress.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And if anyone doesn't know, Cindy also just recently got engaged.
Congratulations.
So
Thank
lots
you,
of fun
thank you.
stuff going on over there.
Very
So
busy.
so we don't need this chart until March, April, before we go into our next planting season. What Cindy's going to be working on is kind of collating all of the formal requests for trees so that we can start keeping track of requests versus how many trees we can actually get into the ground. You know, because we report on how many trees we plant every season, but what's been missing is just how many people are asking for trees and how many people we have to say no to simply because we don't have the funding. So, and I think that that's a really important component, especially when we're trying to figure out budget requests and what we can and can't do realistically, which grants to kind of go for to help bolster the number of trees we plant and that sort of thing. Great. And one of the tree planting programs we did at 15 Madison. So Sonia, if you wanted to give us a little update on that.
Well, everybody is ecstatic with the arborvitaes that were planted in. They know that when the spring rolls around and the sugar maples and the American lindens start to bloom, they know those are going to be beautiful. But I actually do have a letter from the board of directors that I'd like to read, and then I'll forward it on so it can be included in the minutes. And the letter reads, Norwalk Tree Advisory Committee, On behalf of the Board of Directors and owners of Sono Gardens Condominium, we would like to take this opportunity to thank the Norwalk Tree Advisory Committee for the red maple and sugar maple trees planted on the Madison Street side and the Redmond American linden trees planted on the Monroe Street side. In addition, the arborvitaes have added that much needed touch, providing privacy to the complex and beauty to the community. For over 53 years, Sono Gardens Condominium, formerly Townhouse Gardens Co-op, has diligently continued to focus on providing our owners a safe place to live with a peace of mind and to enjoy the community and its amenities. Even with the challenges, we are proud of our accomplishments and will continue to identify innovative ideas to further our mission in bettering the complex and the community. Special thanks to the outstanding crew that planted the trees. This has meant so much to Sono Gardens, and we're looking forward to the spring when the trees begin to blossom. We are excited that we were part of the project and applaud the committee for the work they are doing in Norwalk and believe that through a movement of gratitude, it brings the formation of peaceful and healthy communities. Thank you, and Sono Gardens is looking forward to continuing our relationship. Kind regards, Sono Gardens Condominium Board of Directors and owners.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Very
Appreciate
nice.
that.
I thank the committee. I mean, this kind of fell in my lap. I was asked that I want a tree and I ended up getting an abundance of trees. So I'm really thankful for that. And, you know, I tease with them and I tell them, they're like, well, what are these trees costing us? So the next 3 years of my life, what do you got for me? I signed up for 3 years. What are you gonna do to help me out?
Next question.
That's a great answer, Sonia. That's a great answer.
I was asked to be part of the committee and I gladly did it because I mean, this is awesome. To just be doing this all over town is just incredible. It is absolutely incredible. That's one of the things that I always loved about growing up in Norwalk. And I tell people all the time, Norwalk is not a city and I wish they stopped trying to make it a city. This was always a suburban community and I loved growing up here because of that. You know, and by us adding all these trees all over town, that's bringing that feel back.
Great.
So
Agreed.
I love it.
Agreed.
So thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
So Peter, you're up with the restoration at Oak Hills Park.
So I think, Paul, you have control or you have the plans or
I
should I?
do.
try
Would
to
you
take
like
off?
the aerial or the one without the aerial?
Show them with the aerial, Paul, because I think it's clearer to understand the impact.
Okay.
So, I mean, do you want to give an introduction of what the rationale was or what the cause was? I think we know what the cause was.
Well, and actually, if we wanted to, we could allow Audrey to speak a little bit too, as part of it. But basically, Eversource did some pretty aggressive trimming under the utility wires over on Charles Marshall Drive. And as a result of that, we've asked them to do replanting work over there. They submitted a plan, and while it wasn't a bad plan, we thought it could be better. So as a result, we've asked Peter to put together a landscaping plan that, if the committee approves of it, I can then talk with Audrey a little more, make sure she's okay with it tonight. If we want to have her make a couple comments and then take that back to Eversource so that we can work with them to get them to basically bring the plan to fruition in this spring.
Yeah. Oh, Paul, you got my earlier draft. Got to get the other one up. Anyway, basically the purpose and the title on the sheet that Paul does not have up is about remediation. Remediate the landscape with new planting to really replace the loss and the removal of, I think it was 6 mature white pines. Those white pines
Norway
actually covered a
spruce.
space that was 160, 180 foot across and 30 foot wide. So it's not nothing. It was a significant area under the power lines and beyond. So objectively, we need to repair and close the gap in the vegetative border that goes from Philo Street to the parking lot along Marshall Drive. So it's not necessarily about also just filling, it's about the continuance of the landscape border that already is the entry sequence to Oak Hills Park. So the context is that the landscape to either side of Marshall Drive is one that has mature oak trees primarily along either border. It has very little understory today. It seems like the management and maintenance crews have done their job in removal of invasive species, but there's very little underplanting until we get further north along the drive towards this area here, where we see some remnant brambles and brush to the left, well beyond that, that have been not necessarily been cleaned out yet or have potential for being cleaned up a little bit. We do see some areas where there are ornamental plantings right behind the entrance gate from Pillow Street. We have some pierres. We have a couple groupings of ornamental shrubs. We have 2 memorial gardens that are opposite the parking lot to the right of the screen, where it says parking area. So they're up above, opposite. There are a couple memorial gardens that are already in play in that area. And the project where I'm showing the planting is basically an open turf lawn. There is a culvert that comes from the east to the west under Marshall Drive, but for the most part, it's wide open now. So what are the design considerations for this project? It's really to replant and screen the drive from the fairway and to screen the fairway from the drive. This is opportunity to actually improve visitor experience along Marshall Drive and the entrance to the park overall by screening that bare hillside, which is to the bottom right of the sheet, right where Paul got the cursor. The truss that supports the Eversource wires sits on top of that. It's quite unsightly when you look on right when you're coming from the drive into the parking area. It's also opportunity to mirror the planting and extend the border that is innately along Charles Marshall Drive, not just along the west, but also the east, and start blocking that maintenance facility. There's no rationale for why we haven't completed that planting on that side. I think in part it's because there's this misconception that we cannot plant anything in those areas because of the utility lines. But this affords opportunity to start thinking about the whole sequence and entrance to the park and use the Eversource as sort of a catalyst to start improving how this presents itself as a more positive landscape. In part, we also have to accommodate the clearance concerns of the overhead wires. So we know what those are. We're trying to work with Eversource. It's a necessary evil. We consider it's a little bit of civil disobedience because while they would prefer that we don't plant those areas at all, we're saying this is a park and it's important to us. So they need to be planted. You also have to consider the management and maintenance care abilities of the Park Hill staff. So, anything we put in here, how are they going to manage it and maintain it into the future? Can they do that? And if they need support from the community, can the friends of the groups actually step in and help out a little bit? So the idea is not to keep it too fussy. So we're looking to select materials to achieve those goals while we're trying to increase the ecological diversity of the plantings in the park, improve our native species collections, and improve habitat to the degree we can. This drive area is not necessarily a high habitat area, but we certainly can install plants that have a higher pollinator value, so we can do that. The plant materials that we've selected in part are also about dressing down the existing woodland border. I think about this a little bit more in the larger context than necessarily a gardener might, where I'm coming from oak trees that are up 80 foot high and I'm dropping immediately down to a turf lawn. I'm trying to dress down that landscape and say, how do you get from 80 foot to 4 foot? And that's a combination of large deciduous trees, small understory flowering trees, to large shrubs, to ground plane materials. So we haven't picked selections yet. This is a continued discussion with the committee. This is about concept and sort of an approach, and I'll throw some materials out there. So the deciduous trees shown in the scratchy green, if you will, are placed far away from the overhead power source lines. They're dressing down the north side where we're coming in from Pillow Street. And we're also stopping and saying the end of the border is really at the parking lot. Because when you come around Marshall Drive, looking into that parking lot is unsightly. So how do we use this planting to make this pleasant? Putting large deciduous shade trees to the outside of the flower lines is a start to do that. They could be tupelos, Nyssa sylvatica, great, fruiting tree in the fall, great color. Tilia americana, American linden would be a great choice here. And then I might consider swamp white oaks, particularly by the parking lot, because they have a heavy canopy in terms that they hold their leaves into the fall. So they have a lot of visual impact to dress down that parking lot in the time of year when there are no evergreens there. And they also don't grow as large as other trees. They grow to about 50, 60 feet, whereas the other oaks will go to 80. That's trying to address concerns of the power lines. The evergreens, I show a couple there again, to just keep the diversity mix in place. Norway spruce would be an opportunity. They're conical at the top. Hemlock would be another opportunity. We've seen the woolly adelgid influence or impacts decline statewide. So there is a possibility to consider hemlock. It's not necessarily off the table. Stepping down from that, we would go to the pink trees, which are the understory dogwoods. Cornus Florida, our native Cornus flowering dogwood is always a great choice. I'd like to see more of those along the driveway in particular. We have also begun recommending what we call an American crabapple, Malice Coronado. We put it forward on a project in the Hudson Valley. It's a native in Ohio. It's a native crabapple and it has a low height. So it would be usable in these kind of scenarios. Dropping down from there to the sort of orange color, you got them there, Paul. So I think I've got 12 of those tall shrubs, small trees. And, I'm thinking of those as witch hazels, which get great spring bloom at a time when nothing else blooms, or Cornus moss, cornelian cherries. Again, you'll see Cornus moss in the wood line. You won't necessarily know what it is, but it's flowering quite bright yellow. You almost think it's forsythia, but it's a great tree. It's well underutilized and it's a durable native. Below that, you might consider things like Aronia arbustifolia, blueberries, and eastern ninebark. These are all sort of deciduous shrubs that have pollinator and natural habitat values. They're grouped together in a way that I'm believing the Oak Hills Golf Course staff can manage, tucked in with the tall shrubs so that you can get in there and basically prune them once a year, keep them cut and mulch them. And so we're not increasing the maintenance, the maintenance requirements more than we necessarily have to. I've refrained from using herbaceous materials here for that management reason. Also, you got to keep in mind that this is a park. So the size and the scale of the landscape along the drive is different from what we might rather or would more readily want to see like behind the golf course, clubhouse. We have the garden back there. Those are places that really lend themselves to a more herbaceous border that needs more care. So I've particularly stayed away from that here because of those various reasons, and try to keep it simple and straightforward and still have the impact that I would recommend for continuance actually of this type of treatment right to under the understory, right to Philo Street long term. So we can increase habitat all the way along if we like to, using this as sort of a start, if you will. So I think I've said all I need to say.
You want me to bring up the other one, Peter?
Yeah, the other one is a nicer one. If you want to,
So Peter, while Paul is pulling that up, what is our time frame for this? When do you see this starting to move along?
it's about getting the funding and agreement, which needs to be negotiated with Eversource.
Mhm.
There's a follow-up discussion on what trees and shrubs varieties we actually do want to use. I certainly want to hear from the Audrey and her side as to what some of the preferences might be.
Mhm.
But the
Delete.
strategy would be out the same. The materials can vary, within the context of what we want to achieve.
One of the
So,
things
I
that
think it's a
too would be
spring
good,
plan.
we can get that list of final shrubs, because then I can start the conversation and the trees with Eversource so that we can come up with a final agreement, because we might have to go back one or two times. If you've got ideas or anything, we'd like to hear them tonight. And then Delene, if you want, maybe if Audrey, do you have any comments on this?
Peter, thank you so much. This is a really valiant effort, and I think it is not only in keeping with the spirit of the park, but it's going to be beautiful. I made a few notes about some of the trees and shrubs that you've mentioned, and I would love to see, maybe we can keep in touch so that I can see the list, but certainly the American crabapple and dogwood, the witch hazel. I know blueberry likes woodlands. So, when the trees are planted, to have the shrubs really kind of fill in between and make sort of an ecosystem would be wonderful. There were Norway spruces there originally. So we don't want those, if they're planted, we don't want them under the power lines. That's why they were taken down when they were about 70 years old. My main concern is there are other native shrubs that I could suggest that we are using in the nature center area, which is behind the restaurant, the 14 acres there, that we've had very good luck with, which includes serviceberry and summer sweet, winterberry, some of those which are very low maintenance. But my main concern is that the golf course uses pesticides. So in the nature center area, those 14 acres, there's no pesticides anywhere there. And so my concern, we might need to have a conversation with the grounds supervisor, Jim Shell, about the use of pesticides, because if we go and we plant all this wonderful habitat for wildlife and pollinators, and there's pesticides in the mix, that they'll be attracted and then either harmed or killed possibly. So I just wanted to put that bee in your bonnet, so to speak, that would be a concern. I've been trying to encourage the golf course to become an Audubon course, which is it's a status level where you're not using pesticides. And so far it's sort of fallen on deaf ears, but maybe it's time. I said, at least if you dedicate a hole or two, maybe this hole could be an example. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I would love to stay in touch about your plant list. And I think you're very, very close, and I just really appreciate what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey. And I just want to thank Peter for putting this together. It's a lot of work, and it's all, done on a volunteer basis. And so we really appreciate it.
And Jeff, do you have anything you want to add as a landscape architect too?
Yeah, I think that this is super attractive planting plan, and a lot of Cornus moss is a great underutilized plant. So thank you, Peter. That was awesome. But I had a quick question. Maybe this isn't the right spot for herbaceous material, but and to the point of the use of herbicides and helping keep pests out and soil health. I know herbaceous plants, perennials, do kind of help in that. So maybe not to say that Peter hasn't thought of this, because he has, but maybe this isn't the right spot for that. But I would like to encourage maybe the thought of ground level plantings like ferns and grasses and stuff like, and just flowering perennials that don't. I know that the care is part of the concern. So maybe, like I said, this isn't the right spot for it, but it brings the whole idea of bringing the tree forest canopy from 80 feet all the way down to the ground to even the ground level, which just, I think, softens it. And it could help reduce pests once it gets established, and it almost treat it like a natural ground cover planting, that doesn't necessarily need maintenance on it, like a naturalistic planting doesn't. The wild doesn't get cared for by humans necessarily, like we do, manicured. But like I said, maybe this isn't the right spot for that.
So
to have such a natural planting. But
yeah,
I like
why
all.
don't we think of this, guys? Why don't we all send Peter an email if we have different ideas for some of the plantings. Audrey, please, absolutely included in that as well. And we'll, see what we can do to put as many of those things in there that make sense for the area, for the function of the area, and for a low maintenance management standpoint. Does that sound
would be
reasonable?
great.
And I think this isn't in, I think in context, I'm thinking of this as the start of something that moves further along. And so, Jeff, understory planting, there's certainly, ferns would be fabulous. Can we work with the golf course to manage a fern bed? I mean, I could see ferns all the way along in the rock outcroppings all the way along on the south side of the drive, because the landscape lends itself to that. Hay scented fern would be wonderful in there. I'm trying barren strawberry and other golf, and other cemeteries. And it's very difficult for the maintenance staff to wrap their head around management of ground covers. It's a leap.
No, I understand that. I'm not saying that as a negative. It just what I
No,
did.
no,
I heard
it's-
the comment of like herbaceous plants. I didn't fully hear the whole thing, so I wanted to at least encourage it, and I applaud the planting. So
No.
that was it.
And
We
then-
could, as Chairperson Kip said, if we could get any comments to Peter from any of the committee members, and then maybe have, if Jeff, Peter, and Audrey could work together, because what I'd like to do is come up with a final list, maybe by the next month's meeting, so that I can start working with Eversource and make sure that we hit the planting season this spring. It would be great. And thank you again, Peter, for all you did with this. We appreciate it.
And so Audrey, go ahead and send me the list of the things that you think work best. And see
Yeah,
if-
I will do so. And I appreciate what Jeff had to say. If it's possible to create almost an ecosystem that's been missing, and that would be truly restorative. I think the maintenance crew there is thin. So we could just plan for it and do our best. But I'd be happy to stay in touch with you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We haven't put a budget to this yet. It's not little. It's not a little.
I'll
There
work on
there
Eversource
might
on
be some
that.
sticker shock associated with it initially, but that's where we start to, go back and forth a little bit and make some concessions, but we at least have to get a preliminary list together in order to even open that door for discussion. So if people can just email stuff to Peter, we'll kind of take it from there. Okay, Paul, are you getting up the next item, please? So
Step
this is by far not an exhaustive list, but I spent some time putting together some grants that are available. Part of the issue is that many of the grants that people see, they tend to see them within a few weeks before they're due. And that's not something that's really feasible. A lot of the DEEP and CT Urban grants are due between December and February. And so we're on January 25th. And so obviously some of those are going to be outside of our realistic reach. There are plenty of grants, however, that are either rolling submissions or have submissions that are in the summertime, in time for the fall, or into the fall in time for the spring. And so those are some of the ones. And Paul, if you could scroll up, please. I think this list is a little bit longer than what we're actually seeing on here. That's the end. Okay. And so there we go. So, obviously a work in progress. Whenever I see a grant that I think fits within our purview, I pop it into my little chart here, and I try to keep track of the dollar amount and when they're due. And so, for example, This America the Beautiful grant program is not due until the end of this year. So, I mean, that's something that, we can also discuss. So, Paul, I'm going to finish this list. I'm going to email it to all of us. And, we don't have to pick just one grant. We can certainly work on one grant now that's due in March, like this urban forestry, equity and conservation grants. This first one here, I think that's a really good one for us. And then we can pick another grant that's not due until September. So we have time not only to write these up, but time to work on them. Once you get the grant, we actually have to do everything we said we're going to do in it. So that'll give us some time to kind of spread that out. So again, I'll finish this chart. I'll email it to everyone, and we'll just pick one or two grants to go for, and we'll just take it from there. Okay, thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
And then Rich, the Arbor Day celebrations and locations, if you wanted to talk about that. Rich had a little internet issue and got bounced off, but we're
I
back.
came back as Paul Sotnick again.
Lucky you.
Yeah. twice in one night. So Arbor Day, this is something I was kicking around with Erica, and I just wanted to throw it out there to the group. Years ago, we had done a Arbor Day workshop on Martin Luther King Drive. And it was kind of something that was a prelude to the Connecticut Tree Festival and also the launch of the Tree Advisory Committee. We recruited a bunch of local tree care companies, and we performed some pro bono pruning along Martin Luther King Drive from Washington to Low Street. And that was probably, I want to say 25, 26 years ago. And that area is definitely in need of some more maintenance. So I was thinking that with COVID and the focus on the Sono area, this is a great opportunity to maybe rethink that operation over again as an Arbor Day project for this year. So it's in the very preliminary stages. I want to throw that out there to the group. If we think it's a good idea, I need to start contacting local tree care companies so we can coordinate a date, a time. Last time we did it, we had Public Works work with us with the city crews and also do a lane closure on MLK. And we kind of all regrouped up in the Webster lot prior to the setup and at the end of the event, and had like a big pizza party for all the guys and the companies that donated their time and equipment. And I think with the COVID and the focus on the trees down there, it's a great opportunity to do something like that all over again.
This would probably be a real good prelude. I know I talked a little bit too about it with Rich and Chairperson Kip. The city is doing a Martin Luther King initiative, and as part of that, there's going to be some tree planting in the area down there. So this would be a really good prelude. Do the cleanup, any fallen wood that's got to be done, taken out, any pruning that needed to be done in preparation for any trees that would be planting down there as part of that MLK initiative. So it would really work coordination wise perfect.
I think it sounds great. I mean, in the past, we've always, targeted an elementary school and done a planting at the school grounds and a program with the kids. But as Rich mentioned, in light of COVID restrictions and who knows where things are going to be in April, it's better if we kind of focus on something outdoors and with adults. We don't have to worry about permission with, being around kids and having kids kind of grouped up. So it sounds great. It sounds great.
And we're
We
right
can
in
still
Sonia's
do
neighborhood too.
planting,
So.
involve planting. That
Right
would
in my
be unique.
neighborhood, I love it. Those bushes and trees over there definitely need to be trimmed up a bit. So I definitely love it. I love the idea.
We can get volunteers from Sono Gardens. We can get
Absolutely.
volunteers from Norwalk Community College.
Absolutely.
We can definitely, rally.
I can
So-
definitely get some people involved to help with that for sure.
That sounds great. I would say it's a
We can
green
still
light.
do a
Rich.
couple of plantings too. That way there we satisfy our Arbor Day obligation for Tree City. And the combination of the two events is great. It would work out perfect.
Yeah.
I
would
just
say-
wanted to throw that out there to the group because I know it seems like it's ways off, but in coordinating with the tree companies, I really got to start probably, next month, February, and get a commitment and a date lined up. So if that sounds good, I want to get started on this now pretty much. So whether we do it right on Arbor Day or a little after, I'm okay with that because weather tends to get a little better, a smidge after Arbor Day.
Mhm, mhm. I think it sounds great. I would say green light for sure.
Okay.
Definitely keep me posted so that I can make announcements at my board meetings.
Oh,
So-
definitely.
Yeah, so that we can let people know that, we really do need to grab some volunteers from here and, help out with doing some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think
You're okay
I
with
thought
that,
it was a
Chris?
great, last time we did it and it really made a big improvement on that stretch of MLK. I'd like to see it done again. And
Yeah.
the time frame in so many years that have gone by, it's definitely needs some more attention,
Definitely.
And who could say no to pizza?
right?
Very tough.
And just so everybody knows too, in case you don't, that area up to the top of the hill is all city property too. So the city is responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah, and I'd certainly like our two tree crews to participate with the city.
Oh, yeah, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Great, thank you so much.
We'll get
Paul,
that
you're up
one.
with Tree City USA for Norwalk.
Okay,
So you submitted the application in January, right?
we submitted the application in January, and I'm just gonna share a summary kind of letter of what we went on, and this is a memo that will be going to the Public Works Committee of the Common Council also. Oops, sorry, I shared the wrong screen.
Okay, so Paul, if we get this, that'll be how many years in a row?
This will be the 18th year that we will have gotten the award, and I'm getting ready to pull it up now, so.
You can tell I'm a professional educator, so that if technology goes wrong, my mouth keeps going just to keep, to keep people interested, so we're not all just staring at a screen.
Basically, what they wanted this, and this is normal that we go through, basically, they want all the names and addresses of all the information of the advisory committee members, the digital copy of the tree ordinance, the population of the city, proposed and an actual budget for the tree-related expenses and volunteer time and hours for all city departments, Tree Alliance for the fiscal year consisting of the amount spent. And this will give you an idea of where we were and what we did. Basically, our tree planting and initial care was 127,907. Tree maintenance was 444,798 between all the groups. Tree removal, 82,432. Management, 89,281. The volunteer times are 691 hours total. The IRS rate, it comes out to 19,721. And there are other eligible expenses between the Tree Alliance and other things that we can put in that were meet the criteria. So the total expenditures within all of the categories for the organizations totaled 803,455. This works out to $9.10 per capita, and $2 per capita is what's required to be a Tree City USA. And then we get into some of the community tree management statistics. The city departments and the Tree Alliance total planted between all of the departments and Tree Alliance was 171 trees for fiscal year 20 and then 2021. The pruned, we did 290 trees, and the total of the trees removed was 110. And then the Arbor Day observance, obviously, Mayor Grilling's proclamation, and we had pictures of all the press releases and all of the pictures from the tree planting ceremonies at the schools, as well as what was done over at Oak Hills this year. We had put a narrative of what has changed in Norwalk as a result of being a Tree City USA. The city's met or exceeded all the requirements for recertification. So I feel and would expect that we would find out in April, just before Arbor Day, that would be our 18th consecutive year. The Growth Award now, the Growth Award this year, the application requires the city to earn 10 points or more to be eligible. And it consists of 87 different categories and activities. We chose the following 5: building a team, measuring trees and forests, planning the work, performing the work, and community framework. And for this year, we submitted the following: planning the work and policies is another category under it, worth 3 points. The city established a revised list of tree species to enable for our planting on our public property. We documented this with a narrative, and it was part of our RFP this year. Performing the work, planting trees is worth 2 points. The city, through 2 departments and the Tree Alliance, continue to install new trees as part of our existing tree programs to plant on public or private property. Performing the work and protecting trees was an enforcement proceedings that Chris took care of for 9 Bel Air Road, with was worth 3 points. Basically, we enforced the illegal removal of the trees, documented it with police reports, notice of violation that Chris did, and the collection of the 1875 in fees and penalties. Community framework was worth 3 points. The city held 1 or more meetings among the various city departments, common council members, tree advisory committee members, nonprofits to coordinate urban forestry policies. We documented it and used the agenda from the Tree Summit Planning Meeting from May 21st. And I never go with just 10 points. I always go with a few extra just in case they didn't like something. So we had a total of 13 points. The last one was the community framework and awareness. Arbor Day events, we had the additional events that we did at Kendall Elementary with the kids, as well as Brookside. And then the Tree Alliance did their event, planting trees over with a bunch of volunteers and adults and elementary school students on Elm Street, and also the Norwalk Congregational Church. So once again, we had the 13 points. It would be our 16th consecutive year. And I would expect that we'd find out we would get the growth award again in April also.
Great.
So there's a
So,
lot of
Paul, I
information that goes into reassembling the recertification, but it was submitted and it looks like we're in good shape.
And so, Paul, this is what you need to report on every year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I give it a
And-
little more detail than what we have other years so that people realize some of the breakdown of what we had. And we'll also, like I said, we're going to let the Public Works Committee of the Common Council know this too. It'll be on the agenda for the beginning of February.
Great. Thank you, Paul. If we can pull up the web link that I sent you. The next agenda item is Tree Campus recertification. So Norwalk Community College is the only two-year school in Norwalk to have earned this certification, and actually the only other institute of higher learning. The only other school that has Tree Campus certification is UConn. So we're in a nice kind of category unto ourselves. We've earned it twice in a row, and I submitted in January for year 3. Same certification criteria as the city. Interestingly, though, we need to spend $3 per student as opposed to $2 for the city, but we do that. And Paul, are you having trouble opening that link?
Huh. I think you should be all set.
No, we're looking at my email to you.
All right, let me stop the share and try it again. It's open on my screen.
What you should do is open it on your screen and then screen share.
Yep.
So I would expect us to be recertified again, but we won't know for sure until probably about March or so. One of the things that Paul is attempting to pull up for me now is a link that I worked with our NCC library to create, to kind of, tout the efforts of this Tree Campus USA, the tree committee that's been put together for the campus. And this is in very preliminary stages. We're going to be populating this link as the year goes on, but you can just scroll up, Paul, so people can just get an idea of what's on there in general, not necessarily clicking on anything. But you could see that there are different categories on here. If you can go back up again. Yeah. And so eventually we'll have, you see on the left there, Arbor Day, for example. Eventually we'll have links on there, and there's nothing there now, so don't bother clicking on anything. There'll be Arbor Day photographs and information about how we celebrated Arbor Days those particular years. Tree resources. I actually worked with Rich to get some of the kind of industry books that should be on campus for students to reference. And so we've started building a nice reference library at NCC that has to do with trees and landscape architect. And we have an architect program at the college. So it really, kind of fits in nicely with some of our educational endeavors. So I just wanted to show you just really quickly, just some of the things we could do to kind of help promote what we're doing and the Tree Campus recertifications. Great, thanks, Paul. So Jeff, if you have any NTA activities to report on, we'd love to hear from you. And if you would please start by introducing yourself, because I think, this is the first time that I'm meeting you, and maybe some other people as well.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Erica. Kip. So I'm Jeff Scher. NTA president. I am a landscape architect. I work in Greenwich at Granoff Architects. I've been practicing for almost 10 years or so. So it's not that long, so I'm still a little young there, but covered installation. I worked at a nursery, so I started my career at a nursery and then sort of worked my way up through the rings and eventually obtained my license in New Jersey. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I've been in Connecticut for 3 years now, and in Norwalk for 3 years. So I've loved it. I think it's an awesome town, and there's just a community of everybody. So it's great. I also came from Nyack, which it reminded me similar of Nyack, New York, just right over the bridge. So that's a little bit about me. Happenings with the NTA. We have our annual meeting, we had our annual meeting last week, which is kind of like a annual download and strategy, and it's a big yes session. So it's super fun. Everyone's got ideas. Every idea is good. And basically coming up, we have our board meeting this Thursday. So our board members will hear the list of everything kind of collated, of all the ideas. And our big push this year was sort of to do a 5-year planning session of what do we want to be doing as far as activities annually, and what does that look like, sort of spread out for the next 5 years, so we can kind of calendar everything out, get ahead of grants, know what activities tree planting wise we're doing, and if there's anything that kind of comes up that we're interested in and we know when we can do it, if we have flexibility to do it, or maybe we just have to say no until the next year. So so that's coming up. That's what we've been doing. And yeah, so that's sort of a big overview of what we've been doing. We're looking to do and continue our grants with the 6th taxing district and the 3rd taxing districts this year, which is a recurring tree planting that we do with the town. And we are developing educational hikes to really kind of, we're looking to do that. So that's on the agenda of developing a new event. Basically what it is a low activity, but we can sprinkle in educational information to people who are interested. So the idea is we'd like to take hikes like the Norwalk River Valley and really sort of, and also Calf Pasture Beach, and just different areas around like Oyster Shell Park as well. So, and basically what all these things kind of have in common is the river as well. So kind of educating the community, and first graders or adults or parents or everybody in Norwalk, that it's really all connected. It looks a little bit different in the northern part of Norwalk, that, as it's more wooded, and there, the landscape changes as you move towards the sea, and really to kind of show incrementally how those changes happen and what the environment looks like, and the importance of trees and absorbing water and maintaining sort of a root zone that is able to absorb water, so we don't maybe in the future see as much flooding, hopefully, and just the importance of trees in that role. So that's a big thing. Then I'm just gonna spitball a couple of ideas that we have thrown out there. Nothing's been committed to yet, but these are all in talks. Potentially going out and measuring and inventorying large trees and special trees in Norwalk, and and along with that, also working with Paul in the city with the GIS mapping of trees that were planted, what species they are, when they were planted, who planted them, and that sort of thing. So really kind of inventorying our tree catalog that we have, and that will help us sort of maintain and know what areas, one, need trees, and two, where the healthy trees are, and we need to maintain them. Yeah, and also another thing, we were looking at maybe planning different educational events for adults, like tree pruning classes. I know, Rich, you had mentioned that about Arbor Day. That's great. Maybe we can talk offline as that develops further, but that was
Sure.
one of our event ideas. And then one other thing with the that I think I missed the TAC with the Eversource meeting on the 18th. But I think that there was a walk or something. I didn't know if that had happened or not, if that was in plan. So if I could get more information on that. And that's really it for me.
I attended that meeting also, and it worked out. It's nice the way we're gonna end up trying to work together on the 5-year plan. And one of the things we talked about too with the working together is coming up with some forms to make it easier to keep track of some of this stuff for Tree City USA, so that we can give the Tree Alliance forms and they can fill the stuff out and then filter it back to me to make all of the accounting and bookkeeping for the application a little easier. So there's quite a few collaboration on the planting so that they know what we're doing, and there's not duplication of efforts either.
Yeah, no, that's great. Jeff, thank you so much. Every month you are, invited to give an update on what's going on with NTA. If you have something new and exciting to report, go for it. If you don't have anything, that's okay too. And but we will, invite you to come every month and kind of just keep us all, in the spirit of collaboration, and transparency, knowing what's going on in town with each other. One of the
Thank you.
grants.
I wanted
Oh,
to say
yeah.
thank you for inviting me. So this has been great. It's nice to meet you all via Zoom, albeit, but yeah, so thank you.
Same.
Thank
And
you.
you'll
Yeah.
see that, we're all really good about keeping our meetings to an hour because, we all have families and dinners to make and all kinds of things. So,
So Jeff,
So-
just one point. I
yeah,
heard a little thing there about the systems, the education of in-ground systems with the kids. And so I may follow up with you because that's a place where tree management and care lacks significantly. So
It's
the
all
way
about
you teach that would be
education.
really good to talk about. Because
Yeah,
we
I'd
need to
love
put more of that into our programming and our educational values.
I'd love that. And and to Audrey's point about pesticides and stuff like that, I think that just really bringing it down to the floor, including all types of plants, especially herbaceous plants, kind of help soil health, and that goes a long way in pest management. So
well, sure. And I mean, the
Thank you.
bottom line is that if we do have native plants and we have, these rigorous natural plantings that are already used to being established in these areas, there's a built-in resilience with that as well. So agreed. Other business.
I have one thing I wanted to bring up to Paul to relate to Olmsted. But I know we did some plantings at 133 Murray Street.
Yes.
And I went by the other day and there's at least one damaged tree there from deer rubs, which probably going to be need to be evaluated by Olmsted, but probably added to the replacement list for spring planting, because I know we just put it in.
Well,
And
one of the
just
things
to
I want to ask
piggyback
about,
on that, well, wait a second, Paul, just to kind of piggyback on that, Paul and I got an email from Audrey with a tree having just that issue at Oak Hill. It looked like it was damaged because of deer rubbing as well. So Paul, I mean, if you can have them follow up on both of these, that would be great.
all right, I got a question for you too. Right now, I know that no other work is in their contract to like put any kind of fencing around or things like that. I was gonna actually talk with Chris and Jose to see, because I know Jim, I don't know if Jim will do it or not with the Oak Hills one. If we were to put a couple of stakes in around the tree just to try and protect it somehow. Because right now, there's nothing in Olmsted's contract that they would have to do it. I'll ask him and see if I can get him to do it free of charge, but we'd have to take a look and see what we could do to prevent it. And anybody else, please help me with any ideas. Basically, we got to put a barrier of some kind around it, right? To keep the
Right,
deer
well,
away or.
I mean, they have things, and I'm sure, Rich could probably speak to this better, but they have things that they sell routinely to prevent your trees from being damaged. And these animals are doing it only during a very specific time of the year.
Yeah.
So it's not like we would even have to have these enclosures or stakes or whatever it is we decide to go with, on the trees year round.
I mean, wouldn't it?
What would be the best way to protect them? What would be the best thing?
Chicken wire and a couple stakes
Yeah.
circled around the tree.
Okay, that's kind of
Very
what I was thinking of
inexpensive,
too.
very inexpensive.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, because it would have to be city staff. I don't see that Olmsted's gonna do that.
yeah, it primarily only occurs in the more woodier, high pressure deer areas. So it's not something that needs to be done to every tree, but
Mhm.
on Murray Street, I know there's a big buck in that area because I've almost hit them 3 times now.
Mm.
Over by Oak Hills, that's probably have much higher deer population, so they
If they're co-
need to be put on prior to the damage occurring on the trees.
Right, yeah, and they usually are in early fall is usually when the males are kind of scraping their antlers. So we can maybe, do something preventative, knowing that that's the time of year to kind of target.
Okay,
Tend to like the small single caliper trees in particular, which is what we plant.
Mhm, mhm.
They even like corrugated pipe, you split it down the middle and just wrap it around and then take it off.
That
when you're
works
done.
as well.
Does
Yeah.
that work?
That works too, especially because these are lower diameter trees, so we could totally do that.
that might be easier than the stakes actually, than in the chicken wire.
It'd
Less
be
work.
interesting to try, or will the buck rub the corrugated up and down?
Yeah, it would cause more damage.
Might be feel better than the tree, I don't know.
All right, guys, great meeting. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. Happy Tuesday, and we'll talk soon.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
See you
Good
next
night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks.
Right.